What's up, football fans? I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our two latest book releases, Football: A Love Story and What Did Football Teach Me? Visit our website at footballgameplan.com/books and get your copies today. One of three great matchups this week in the Big Ten as Minnesota takes on Northwestern, and the Gophers getting off to an early start is going to be huge in this game. And you know what Minnesota wants to do coming into this matchup. They want to dominate the line of scrimmage and they want to own the time of possession. While they haven't been able to dominate up front like we've seen in the past because of their offensive line's inconsistency, what has been a bright spot for the Gophers this season is the strides that they've made in the passing game. And versus Northwestern, they're going to need a well-balanced offensive attack to get the job done. Quiet as kept, the Wildcats are eerily similar to the Gophers in the sense that they are built to control the line of scrimmage. Their backfield is also impressive with sophomore tailback Justin Jackson, who averages 129 yards a game. The Wildcats have excelled on third down defensively. They get off the field and boast one of the best defenses in the nation. Both teams struggle in the red zone, so expect a low-scoring game, which is right up the Wildcats' alley. I like Northwestern to win. Look for quarterback Clayton Thorson to have another solid day throwing the football. Great Big 12 matchup between Oklahoma and West Virginia, and the Mountaineers made light work of Maryland last week, and it goes to show you what a well-balanced offensive attack can do for a team. The Mountaineers racked up over 600 yards of total offense versus the Terps, and the goal in this game is to make the Sooners one-dimensional, and that starts with stopping talented tailback Samaje Perine. The backers have to not only make plays against him, but they can't get over-aggressive in doing so because quarterback Baker Mayfield can kill you on the ground as well. For Oklahoma, this game will be won or lost on the perimeter. Wide receiver Sterling Shepard and D.D. Westbrook have to be able to make one miss and consistently find soft spots in the Mountaineers' zone defense. While defensively, the effort the secondary showed versus Tennessee and Tulsa has to be there. This will be the first big defensive test for West Virginia. I think the first half will be a low-scoring game with the barrage of points being scored in the second half. I like Oklahoma to be the last one standing in an entertaining Big 12 contest. Up in the MAC this week, Ohio travels to Akron to battle the Zips, and for the Bobcats in this game, they can't allow one loss to become two. They lost a winnable game last week versus Minnesota and face a similar offense this game versus Akron. The biggest goal, I think, in this one will be to sustain drives offensively and force sophomore quarterback Thomas Woodson to beat you throwing the football, which means the defensive ends have to play with controlled aggressiveness. They can't get over-aggressive in their rush lanes. The Zips are coming off an impressive victory versus my Raging Cajuns last week, and a lot of credit has to go to their offensive line. They did a phenomenal job in the trenches, which allowed Woodson to play very well throwing the ball and running the football as well. Now, the second and third level defense will play a huge role in slowing down the Bobcats' spread attack. Look for Woodson in the passing game to have success, but it won't be enough. I like Ohio. Staying in the Mid-American Conference, after 3 straight road games, Ball State returns home to face an undefeated Toledo squad. Can Ball State win in the trenches? That's been the calling card of the Rockets so far this season. They've manhandled every opponent up front offensively. Last week versus Arkansas State, the Rockets' passing game came to life, and they're still doing fine without star tailback Kareem Hunt in the backfield. Now, if you're Ball State offensively, they must maximize red zone opportunities. Toledo is excellent on both ends inside the 20, and that's where the Cardinals have to win this ball game. I think overall Ball State has the offensive attack that could frustrate the Toledo Rockets, but defensively they'll struggle versus the run, which will ultimately lead the Rockets to a victory. I like Toledo. Big game between Air Force and Navy, as the winner of this game has the inside track to the Commander-in-Chief's trophy this season. Both squads do a great job of not beating themselves, and where Air Force can exploit opportunities in Navy's defense this week, I believe, is in a passing game. Wide receiver Jalen Robinette at 6'4", 212 does a great job at playing above the rim, and he'll have his fair share of opportunities to get chunk plays in this game for the Falcons. What makes Navy so good and so tough to defend is that they are one of the best teams in the country on first downs. You win on first downs, and it makes every subsequent down after that much easier to convert. The midshipmen right now are converting at an unheard of 63% on third downs. That's tough to defend, and a big reason why I like Navy to win this one. Keenan Reynolds, the quarterback, deserves Heisman consideration, and quietly, Navy's defense is the big reason why they are currently undefeated. Good early season ACC matchup here between Boston College and Duke, and if you take away the games against both Maine and Howard, Boston College is still only giving up 14 points a game, which tells you that this defense is really damn good. We know they can run the ball and play great defense, but if they would like to challenge for the conference this year, that passing game has to start to come alive. Duke's defense is no slouch either. They're led by safety Jeremy Cash, and the Blue Devils defense shut down that difficult Georgia Tech option attack last week, and this game, I believe, poses a different challenge. Can they consistently match the physicality of BC's ground game? Offensively, quarterback Thomas Sirk is a dual-threat guy that does a great job keeping defenses honest. His passing will have to be the way to go in this one, as it'll be tough to run against Boston College. I do think they'll be able to make enough plays downfield. Points will be at a premium, but I do like the Duke Blue Devils to win it. Huge SEC matchup between Georgia and Alabama, and there's still a lot of unknown in this ball game, especially at quarterback. Can Alabama's Jacob Coker overcome his inconsistency and regain confidence? And for Georgia, how will Grayson Lambert perform versus pressure, seeing that this is his first real defensive test that he's going to face this year? What we do know is that this game will feature two great tailbacks in Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry, along with three other really good ones on both sides. So the true test will be which defense can stop the run. Georgia does a great job at winning with quickness and resetting the line of scrimmage, while Alabama is built for this type of a game with their front seven. Look for the Tide to take away Malcolm Mitchell, the wide receiver for Georgia, and force Lambert to find other options in the passing game. I like Alabama in this one, unless Georgia uses both reserve running backs Keith Marshall and Sony Michel in the passing game to take advantage of the linebackers of Alabama in different passing matchups. I think Bama will slow down Chubb enough to make the Dogs one-dimensional and ultimately win the game. Underrated Big Ten matchup here as Iowa takes on Wisconsin, and I like the fact that Iowa has faced different offensive styles this season. I think that helps keeps their defense mentally sharp each and every week. And the one team I think compares to Wisconsin was Pitt, and the Hawkeyes did a solid job versus the run in that game. Well, they'll get a heavy dose of that versus the Badgers this week, but what has been different in this year's Wisconsin squad, I think, has been the progress of Joel Stave in the passing game. A well-balanced Wisconsin team, I think, is a very dangerous one, and Stave will have to play a big role in this one as he'll be facing a very good pass defense in Iowa. I like the Hawkeyes in this game. No one is talking about Iowa right now, but they may be one of the more well-rounded teams in the Big Ten on both sides of the ball. A battle of unbeatens in the Big Ten between Ohio State and Indiana, and this is a tale of two defenses. In Ohio State, you have arguably the best defense in the country, and in Indiana, you have an opportunistic defense that allows 32 points a game. I think the big equalizer in this matchup is Ohio State's offense and its propensity to start slow or sputter at some point in this ball game, because we know on the opposite side, the Hoosiers attack hits the ground running from the time they get off the bus. The trio of quarterback Nate Sudfeld, running back Jordan Howard, and wide receiver Ricky Jones has been nothing short of spectacular for Indiana this season. Can they maintain that level of success, especially up front versus defensive end Joey Bosa and that talented Buckeyes front seven? While they'll have their chances early to put up points, I think they'll do so, but I do think at the end of the day, Ohio State's offensive line with Taylor Decker will eventually wear down the Hoosiers. I like Ohio State. Two unbeatens in the SEC meetup as Ole Miss and Florida kick off in Gainesville, and this is a good scouting matchup as you'll get to see the Rebels wide receiver Laquan Treadwell compete against the Gators cornerback Vernon Hargraves III. While the battle may end up being a rubber match, the focus should be elsewhere in this game, like at quarterback. Can Will Grier find that level of consistency in this game? He played well down the stretch versus Tennessee, which ultimately led them to the victory. And can Ole Miss's defense find a way to get to the quarterback? They swarm and play well versus the run, but they haven't really been able to frustrate the passer back there in the pocket. That'll be key in this ball game. The Gators, in my opinion, have to take that small ball approach and force Ole Miss's defense to consistently make plays in space. I think the youth and inexperience will prove to be detrimental to the Gators. I like Ole Miss. Intriguing Pac-12 matchup here between Colorado and Oregon, and I say intriguing because the undefeated Buffalo's strength is quite possibly, especially after last week, the biggest weakness for the Oregon Ducks, their run defense. And the biggest and obvious goal for the Ducks in this game is to make Colorado quarterback Sifo Lufau beat you throwing the football. They have to make them one-dimensional, and that starts with attitude and 1-2 versus the running game. You have to like what you've seen so far from Colorado this season in the trenches on both sides of the ball, actually. If this defense led by linebacker Derek McCartney can play well on the perimeter and force Oregon downhill, I think they can knock off the Ducks. I just can't see Colorado's offense doing enough in the passing game to pull off the upset. Look for the Ducks to rebound and get the victory. Hawaii travels to Boise, and this is a huge game for the Warriors as, in my opinion, they match up very well versus the Broncos, what will be key for them is defensively getting after freshman quarterback Brett Rippon. The Rainbow Warriors can play solid defense when the offense isn't putting them in bad situations with turnovers. Now, Boise State is fresh off a blowout victory over Virginia, and they played a complete game on both sides of the ball. Now, versus Hawaii, I look for defensive coordinator Marcel Yates to dial up the pressure versus Max Whitted and playing aggressively versus the run to put Hawaii in second and long and third and long situations. I think you'll see another impressive defensive performance by Boise. I like the Broncos. Really good rivalry game here between Louisiana and Louisiana Tech, and if the Raging Cajuns want to get back on the right track, it'll have to start with their passing game. Quarterback Brooks Hack has to find a way to loosen up the box versus La Tech, so that way Elijah McGuire can have more room to run the football. This can't happen if they're one-dimensional. Now, defensively, it starts and ends with stopping Louisiana Tech's running back, Kenneth Dixon. Now, Dixon, in my opinion, is one of the best running backs in the country. He's the straw that stirs the Bulldogs' drink. Quarterback Jeff Driscoll has been a positive impact on his football team, but in this game, the most important thing for the Bulldogs defense is to close the door on Elijah McGuire. Linebacker Nick Thomason and Louisiana Tech defensively definitely have the talent to do so, and they can't let him slip through for a big gain. I like La Tech in this ball game. The Bulldogs force you to defend every blade of grass offensively and play with a lot of activity on defense. I think they'll cool off the rival Raging Cajuns. My upset pick of the week is San Jose State going down to Auburn and knocking off the Tigers, and the main reason is a simple one for me. Running back Tyler Irvin is one of the most explosive backs in the country, and if you don't know him, get to know him because he's a legit pro prospect. He's averaging 6.7 yards a carry and is also the second leading receiver on this team. Now, the Spartans' defense matches up very well versus the inconsistent Auburn offense, and I think they'll steal a couple of possessions away from the Tigers. And I would also keep an eye on cornerback Jimmy Pruitt as he looks to be another solid defensive back prospect coming out of this Spartans program. And finally, the game of the week, I believe, between Notre Dame and Clemson, and this will boil down to who can play well in the box. Notre Dame's rushing attack with C.J. Prosise and company is both consistent and explosive, and the Irish go 4 deep in the backfield and can also hurt you with quarterback Deshaun Kaiser's dual threat capability. Clemson's front four with Kevin Dodd and Shaq Lawson are so good at maintaining the line of scrimmage and shedding blocks that it allows Mike linebacker B.J. Goodson free reign to the football. It'll ultimately come down to the passing game, and that's where you look at Clemson's quarterback Deshaun Watson being the biggest X factor in this ball game. There will be plenty of opportunities for the intermediate and a deep passing game to work. I think we'll see a mid-30s type of a ball game between these two squads. I wouldn't mind watching these two teams play again in a bowl game or even in a playoff matchup. I like the Tigers to win. Look for wide receiver Sharon Peak to have a big day versus that Irish secondary.